Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football Dill. Saturday morning in the Tennessee Nico saga seemingly coming to a close. Tennessee's going to let Nico walk. And Dill, I want to start this credit to Tennessee here. I mean, if you are a college football program that is interested at winning at the highest level of the sport, you have to have principles. And I think Tennessee kind of drew the line in the sand. And does it hurt Tennessee in the near future, in the 2025 year with Nico leaving? Absolutely. I don't think a Tennessee fan would argue that. But if you're interested in being a program that is consistently competing for national championships, in my opinion, this is how you have to operate. And so I give Tennessee a lot of credit. And now the conversation is, where does Nico end up playing his college football going into 2025? And I'll start with this. It, to me, comes with a little bit of a buyer's beware, where it's not that I think Nico is a bad quarterback. He played very solid in his first year starting in the SEC, allowed Tennessee to go to the college football playoffs. Now, there were some other circumstances around Tennessee, very good run game, very good defense, but he was a solid quarterback, and I don't think anybody's going to argue that. And he's going to help a team out in a big way in 2025. But adding a quarterback for the price tag that he sounds like he's demanding, and I think more importantly, missing all the spring practice, that would be a concern if I'm a head coach or a general manager of a program that's thinking about adding Nico to my roster. Want to get into some potential landing spots for Nico before we get into it. As always, y'all let it fly. Tennessee fans would love to hear how you guys are feeling. Whether you're a USC fan, UCLA fan, Notre Dame fan, would love to hear y'all thoughts as well as potentially adding Nico. This is a fascinating storyline. Appreciate you guys rocking with it Saturday morning. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. And Dill, if this is any sign of what's to come over the next couple of weeks in the spring transfer portal window, we are going to have a lot to talk about. Dill, I will give you the tee box here before we get into particular programs that might be interested in adding Nico. General thoughts on the situation that has unfolded over the last 48 hours.
Well, I certainly concur with you. If you want to build a sustained program, you probably got to do what Tennessee
Yeah,
does.
I agree.
Again, I get the sense some of the players were a little bit uneasy with some of the things going on. Obviously, you just can't really be held hostage in the way it seemed like they were maybe trying to be held hostage. So I do think Tennessee, at the end of the day, it's not great for the 2025 season for sure. Like, you don't want to lose your starting quarterback, but it is a program that's recruited a bunch of good quarterbacks. They have guys in the pipeline. They have Faison Brandon coming. I mean, that's the right decision for Tennessee.
And I'll say this, like we talked about this yesterday. If Nico does decide to leave and you say, hey, we ain't going to pay you that money, you're sitting on a lot of money that was supposed to go to Nico, where you could either build a very good 2026 class with that excess resources, or you could go out, and I promise you that there will be some programs or good quarterbacks, I should say, that are looking
I'm
at.
very much not in the camp. I do not think Tennessee should be going for a portal quarterback. I think this is a really bizarre move, in my opinion. Like, when do you see really top tier teams want quarterbacks in the spring portal? We haven't
I
really
agree.
seen it yet. Even Michigan went into last season with basically nothing at the position.
Well, but that's to the point, though. If you're Tennessee, I don't know if you want to go the Michigan route where you just trotting out.
Tennessee's not in the Michigan route. They've recruited good quarterbacks. They're,
Yep.
I think, prepared more so than a lot of programs to kind of deal with this. And I think that's a lot of the reason Josh Heupel made the decision he made.
Well, I do agree with that. I think Tennessee letting Nico walk, yes, we drew a line in the sand, but maybe we wouldn't let him walk if we didn't have confidence in a guy like Jake Merklinger or a guy like George McIntyre. Like, you do have two blue chip quarterbacks now. It's young, it's not a very deep room, but you do have some talent in that room. I'm interested to see the process that Tennessee goes through over the next couple of weeks in terms of how do we pivot from the situation? Do we ride with the quarterbacks in our room, or do we go out and maybe land a quarterback? Though I'm guessing there's going to be some quarterbacks that are looking at that potential opening to be the quarterback of the Tennessee Vols in 2025. There will be some very good quarterbacks that maybe are looking to jump to that situation.
See, I got to be honest, and this can kind of transition into, like, what does the market look like for Nico? Let's say I got to be really kind of curious about what teams think of adding quarterbacks in the portal in the spring window. Because most teams figure that out in the winter when they need quarterbacks. Notre Dame did it last year. Obviously, the teams that needed quarterbacks this year. they add him in the winter window, because then you feel like you're more part of the team, if you will. And for the
Agree.
quarterback especially, you kind of need to be that guy. And when you come in only for the summer as a rental, I think that works for defensive line. It works for cornerbacks. It works for linebackers. It works for offensive linemen probably. I just don't think it really works particularly great at the quarterback spot.
Very much agree. Not only because you're supposed to be the leader of the football team, but also like you got to know that offense about as good as anybody on the football field, and
Exactly.
it's hard to do that
So
in just a
that's why I
couple
look like,
months.
does Tennessee need to add one? And then when you get into the conversation of what teams are going to be really like chomping at the bit to give Nico Iamaleava what he wants in NIL, it sounds like I'm very curious to see
I'm
what the market looks like in
all right.
this upcoming
Well,
window.
let's get into that. Where does he end up? The school that you're seeing the most amount of buzz to, obviously, Nico being a Cali kid, is UCLA. This was kind of my concern with Nico to begin with these contract negotiations. Dill, you go to UCLA, in my opinion, you're playing with so much fire because you look at that UCLA roster. He'd be the quarterback one. I mean, Joey Aguilar from App State's solid, but Nico's the quarterback one of that football team. Dill, it's almost like the Dante Moore situation, where Dante Moore went to UCLA in 2023 as a true freshman, got thrown out with a really bad football team, didn't look good. Like, I look at it and say, is this going to allow you, going to UCLA, is that going to allow you to be a top 10, top 5 pick in the NFL draft in the next 12 months? I think you're playing with some big time fire if Nico decides to go to UCLA, because that team around him, from a pass catcher standpoint, from an offensive line standpoint, playing in the Big Ten, that would concern me if I am Nico or members of Nico's camp in terms of.
And that's going to be the issue, because the two programs that feel like they make the other semblance of sense is USC and Notre Dame. Both didn't really add a guy in the winter window.
Yeah.
USC lost Miller Moss, obviously, in the winter window. In Jaden Maava in Husan Longstreet, do you feel incredibly good
Well,
about going into this year? Again, maybe you do. I'm not sure. Like, we don't really know. Jaden Maava didn't play particularly great, in my opinion, last year. So that's a team that, like, could they use an upgrade at the quarterback spot? Of course, I think they probably could. But I look at what Lincoln Riley, especially bringing in Chad Bowden, is trying to
that's,
build there.
yeah,
Is that, like, do you want to rock the boat with this type of move? Because I do think bringing
yeah.
in this type of thing, it's rocking the boat of your
So
culture.
USC, and I think we might just do a separate one with the USC fans to dive into this conversation more. This one, Dill, 2 years ago, he'd be going to USC without Chad Bowden. But like, Chad Bowden's a process guy, and this is, I don't think, part of Chad Bowden's process in terms
I
of
don't
building
either.
this USC program back to where it belongs. Now, would I be lying? Would I be lying if I said I wasn't intrigued about Nico getting coached up by Lincoln Riley? I would be. That is a very intriguing talent at the quarterback position with a coach that's done a very good job developing quarterbacks.
But
But
that's the issue. You don't really have a ton of time to develop him in this
I
circumstance.
agree.
It's pretty much like you're just throwing right into
And
the
also,
fire. And again, at certain spots it works.
we
Not
saw USC, David Bailey hit the transfer portal, modern day kid, and that would have made sense maybe, but he was commanding what, $2 million, and Texas Tech was willing to pay. But I don't think USC was like, hey, for a 6-month guy that's only going to be part of our program for 6 months, that's not how we want to do things at USC. Now, the flip side of it is Lincoln Riley knows what the quarterback room has looked like in spring practice. Has Jaden taken a step? Has Jaden taken a significant step going into 2025? If so, you're probably not even kicking the tires. But Dill, if you haven't seen what you wanted to see from a guy like Jaden or a guy like Hassan Longstreet, we'll see if USC decides to make a move. I'd be surprised personally, and I would love to hear from the USC fans. But I'm kind of with you. Chad Bowden wants to do this thing the right way.
because
And
I look at what they're doing and how aggressive they are being on the high school ranks right
yeah,
now for USC. It feels like they're trying to move a little bit away from maybe what they were, where it did feel like constantly putting out fires, if you will, when the start of each year. Okay, well, these have a deficiency in this room. We got to go add a bunch of transfers. Like, they have probably relied on that a little bit too much at the
yeah,
expense of developing guys
yes.
up through their pipeline. And it does feel like, with the way they're recruiting right now and kind of what they've been up to, especially bringing in Chad Bowden from Notre Dame, who really was doing it, I
And
think, the right way. I just don't see this move as making a ton of sense for the culture fit. And like, almost what Tennessee did. They were like, okay, well, we can't let this like spill over to everything we're doing.
and
Like,
I'll say this still,
have
if he hit the transfer portal in the winter, I think I'd be a lot more comfortable doing this. But again, to me, not being in for spring practice looms large in this conversation.
and that's where I'm very curious. That'll be kind of like, is that a big deal for most coaches? I personally would think it would be.
I think it
It's
should
been
be.
a big deal in the past in the
Yeah,
portal windows. Like quarterbacks go in the winter. That's just how it's been typically for college football. So
agreed.
I mean, we'll see. Like if teams really kind of step up to want him, because again, just on the pure surface, a lot of teams he'd be an upgrade for at the quarterback spot, and really good teams.
Can Can you think of a time where a quarterback come in after the spring and had a lot of success? I'm trying to think. I probably should have looked at this before we went live, but I can't
Oh, we
think
were
of a
talking about
time.
this for like an hour last night. I
Oh
feel
yeah,
like.
you want an insight on the boys in our social life. Me and Dill argued about Nico for maybe 2 hours on our Friday night. Did nothing else. Pathetic from the boys. All right, Dill. Notre Dame. Okay. I'm just gonna start with this. Notre Dame's got a 3-horse race at the quarterback, but we're gonna be able to watch the spring game this afternoon as well. So kind of get a feel for where these quarterbacks are at. We've seen Notre Dame go to the transfer portal the last 2 years to grab quarterbacks, but that was in the winter. And then, Dill, here's the second thing, though. Would Nico not be a dynamite fit in this Notre Dame
Yeah,
offense?
he would be a really good fit. I
Yeah,
think it's like that Notre Dame's the one that, from a standpoint of how Marcus Freeman's operated for the most part, it kind of surprised me a little bit because
me
I do
too.
think you pretty much run that whole room out. Like CJ Carr, if I'm him and you do that, I'm leaving. If
That
I'm
that
Kenny
gets to the
Minchey, I'm
point.
leaving.
That gets to the point where we were kind of talking last night. I don't know if there's going to be a lot of serious programs, and serious programs meaning like, hey, we want to win national championships every single year. I don't know how many serious programs are going to be interested
Because then
in a
what's
guy
the
like
next
Nico.
high school quarterback saying? Like, oh, you would do this to me? Like, this is how you kind of do your
Yeah,
business? It's just it'd be tough. I'd be again. It's a good fit on the outside if we kind of exclude what it does for the future of your program and probably what you can kind of sell to other quarterbacks and
yeah.
frankly guys across like okay you're just gonna mercenary us and take highest bidder and just kind of like be very
Texas Tech,
willing and comfortable running us out. But
Texas Tech.
yeah,
They've been the team that it's like we are going to spare no expenses, loading up for 2025.
we're taking
Now
our
here's the thing: is Dale, I think Baron Morton's a pretty dang solid quarterback who's been at Texas Tech for a very long time. If I were to tell you this, does Nico make Texas Tech better over Baron Morton in 2025? Because I think that's a legitimate conversation. I think Nico's a better quarterback, significantly more talented quarterback, but Baron Morton's been in that system for a while now. Who do you think gives Texas Tech a better chance to win football games in 2025, Nico or Baron Moore? And I think that's a legitimate conversation. I'd probably lean Nico, but I think that's a conversation you could have.
Texas Tech is the one that I feel like because maybe they'd give him the money he wants. I think they've shown that they're very comfortable kind of swimming in the portal waters and being
Oh
very,
yeah.
very aggressive and
Oh
like
yeah.
and they are loading up for 25. I think they're kind of burning the boats. You kind of can
Yes.
see what they did in the winter portal. You saw what they did go get David Bailey when
Yeah.
almost every team in the country would have wanted David Bailey. This is a team that they're all in for 25. So this would actually make sense because that is a very all in for 25 move.
It's 100%. And it's like, hey, 2026, we'll worry about
Yeah,
you
with that
when we
time.
get there. Or maybe I'm taking another job after I take Texas Tech to the college football playoffs. UNC. We were talking about this last night. This kind of would make some sense still. Because number one, they don't have an answer in the quarterback room, at least in my opinion. Number two,
Although Jake Brown, that Brown guy,
yeah,
he's
I agree, but I'm taking
he's
Nico
fast.
over him.
Yes, true.
Um, we all heard the reports when Bill Belichick took this job. He wanted the part of the holdup in that was I want a war chest. I want money to go build a roster. So maybe having the assumption that UNC has the money to go get him, they certainly have the quarterback need to go get him. UNC, how are we feeling about it?
UNC is another one that kind of makes sense. Again, it's not like that blood football program. It's
But
not a team that like has an identity necessarily right now, so they're kind of crafting it, if you will. So I
yeah,
think like this move, like well, you're not really disrupting anything because there's not
no,
really anything there right now.
there's nothing to
This is
disrupt.
one that again, with the quarterback play at the level it looks like it'll be, or at least what it may be, because you really have nothing proven. And I know Brown, he had a really good game against Illinois, but
And
that's pretty much all you really
and
saw.
Dill, I was sorry to cut you off, but I'll say this: I think going to UNC. I mean, when you talk about USC or Notre Dame, like you have the structure around you to have some success. UCLA and North Carolina. My question would be, do you have enough pieces around you to have a ton of success?
No, but that is the problem. The teams that have the pieces around them,
Have operated the right way.
they built something that I don't think, like, this isn't the type of move that those teams
I
make.
agree.
Like,
I
Georgia
agree.
doesn't do this. Texas
Yeah.
doesn't do this.
Yeah.
Ohio State, they don't do this.
Yeah. Ohio State's another one, and again, we'll
No.
get a feel for where. No, I'm just saying, well, like they don't have a court. Yeah, you're right. I would be very surprised. Very, very surprised. I mean, the thing is, like, if you're Ohio State, you take Nico. You could say Sane transferring out. I could see Keinholz transferring out. Maybe Tavian St. Clair stays. Like,
Yeah,
you do the run
100% lose
risk.
it too. You lose Keinholz saying no question about it. The second that hits the paper, they're gone. So it's like,
Yeah, it's
but frankly, that's not just Ohio State. Every team is facing this problem when they go after Nico Iamaleava in this moment.
Dill,
They're losing.
I'll say this. This has the opportunity to really create some dominoes. What if Ohio State decides to take him,
Yeah,
and then you see Sane and Connell hit, or what if a team like Notre Dame takes him and you see C.J. Carr and Kenny Minchie hit? There could be some there
I
could
would
be
be
some ripple effects.
personally, I'd be very surprised if this is like sets off real time, because I feel like people said this last year. They're like, "Oh, the spring's gonna be crazy."
Well,
Spring's
but
gonna
we
be
didn't see a name like this hit, man. We didn't see
but this feels a little isolated. This I don't know.
We'll see.
I'd be
Yeah.
surprised if this is like. Well, I mean, we will see, because who knows? This is
Yeah,
interesting.
look, on Wednesday afternoon, we didn't think we'd be having this conversation on Saturday morning, but here we are. College football, it is really the Wild West right now. All right. I think that very interested to see what teams go after, and we'll obviously continue to have this conversation as we get some more names emerge. Appreciate you guys. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel, and we'll talk to y'all later. Peace.